This show is all about understanding food flavorings and being an untamed leader, blazing a trail in the food industry and beyond. Welcome to the Produce Moms. This is the podcast where I talk to various people who've made an impact on the fruit and vegetable community. There are so many stories to share that will change the way you look at fresh produce. Welcome to the show, Laurette.
Thank you, Lori. I'm so appreciative and glad to have you having me on your show. This is going to be really fun.
Oh, it's going to be great. And for those of you that aren't familiar with Laurette, she has an incredible podcast of her own. So I'm sure today's discussion will have an opportunity to, talk more about that. But just really excited to have her on today, especially as we really celebrate strong female leadership here on the Produce Moms podcast. You're going to love this show. You're going to love Laurette's story. And Laurette, let's just start there. Let's start with telling the story of your family business.
We started in 1914. Man, truly, his name was Edlong. So he started our company. My family got into it in the 60s. So my dad joined Edlong in the late 60s. And his background was biochemistry, flavorist. So he was a master flavorist. So I am the youngest of 7. And my brother was heir apparent, so he's 10 years older than me. And his path was really laid out by my dad. You're going to go to K-State, you're going to take biochemistry, you're going to run the company. And then lo and behold, my brother was like, you know what, this isn't my dream. I don't want to do that. I want to be a teacher. At that point, he was living in California and doing sales for Edlong, and he never wanted to come back to Chicago because, our winters are so fun here. So that worked out well for me. And it's weird. Even as a little girl, I hung out with my dad a lot because the other 6 siblings of mine are, much older. There was a 5-year gap, and then I was the surprise baby. So my dad and I were really kind of good buddies, fishing buddies, gardening buddies. And so I learned the business really young and knew I wanted to do it. So even with knowing that my brother was heir apparent, so that happened when I was about 8th grade, that he stepped back from the business. So I'm like, ooh, the skies are opening a little bit here. I always loved science. So I went to Purdue, as we talked about a little bit. Great school, very proud of Purdue alumni. And in one of your episodes, they were talking about, recruiting students to get into consumer family science and things like that, and how important a counselor is. And my counselor was amazing. And she really directed me to this food and business degree that I was like, that's perfect. Absolutely perfect. So I did that, and still no promises from my dad that you're going to, a very different path than for my brother. My brother's was like laid out. Mine, he was more like, keep doing what you're doing and we'll see what happens, So I worked at Ball Corporation, was funny enough, my first job right out of Purdue. So I made a lot of salsas and a lot of pickles, and so I was thinking of, your line of work in produce, did a lot of shopping for produce and worked down in a kitchen and was in consumer affairs. So helped farmers and farmers' wives with home canning. And so it was a good experience. Then I got the call from my dad, probably in like 93, and it's time to come to the family business. And I can't lie, I couldn't wait to get out of Muncie, Indiana and get back to Chicago.
Well, in Ball Corporation, for anyone who didn't piece it together, that's the iconic glass jars, Ball Company. Those are Ball mason jars.
And the Ball Blue Book is the iconic home canning recipe book with safety. A lot of food safety in home canning. So yeah, I got to make recipes for the Ball Blue Book.
I love that. Well, we have to talk about your journey back to the family business, but before, I have to say it because I went to IU. And so this is like, a little bit of, we're supposed to have a little bit of a rivalry here.
I have so many good friends that went to IU. I think that's a great school.
Yes, it's a great school. We'll set the rivalry aside because I think Laurette is a phenomenal leader, certainly worthy of the spotlight today on the Produce Moms podcast. And let's talk about your story of coming back to the family business. So I know from your bio, you started in, like a customer service level job?
That's funny that it's that's out there somewhere, and I don't know. That's not 100% true. I did end up in customer service, but I started in an amazing role that I kind of created and pledged to my dad. I'm like, we need this. So it was the liaison between the technical labs, so our application lab and our flavorists, and the sales team. So I was kind of a technical sales role was what I was going for because those two need to communicate. And then it ended up that the perfect storm hit at Edlong. My dad had put in some major equipment and we lost one of our largest customers. So the bank was calling the loan. It was a crucible moment for both of us. But the most I ever learned was during that time. It was a gift, quite frankly. We learned, we changed really the whole culture of the company, way more customer intimate than operational. I'd say we were more operational before that. And it was really when my dad and I became true partners. So he had to sign his life away. Little did I really know, for personal guarantees with the bank, and his best friend, which we called Uncle Bud, came in with, $1 million in a suitcase and bought us some time with the bank. And within 18 months, we turned it around. So we also read the book Good to Great at that time. I love that book. We still make every new employee read that. They're probably like, oh. But it's so important to know your hedgehog and what you're the best in the world at, what you're passionate about, and what's your economic driver. So that's when we became very focused on dairy, because that is what we are the best in the world at. And it's not only dairy flavors, it's non-dairy dairy flavors, which confuses people a lot. But if you think about like vegan cheeses that have to taste like cheddar, that's where a non-dairy dairy flavor would come in. So we compete with some of the biggest flavor companies in the world, obviously. And that focus and that expertise has really, saved us, defined us, give us a value proposition that others can't touch. So,
well, let's talk about flavors. I mean, I said in the brief intro, we're gonna debunk questions that people have about food flavorings, because I think it's one of those things where it's probably in more than what people realize, first of all.
Oh, absolutely.
And second of all, if we were to ask people, Laurette, like, hey, how do you feel about flavorings added to your foods? I mean, most people are like, no additives, no like how do you help people understand the natural process behind flavors?
I mean, flavors have been around since the beginning of time.
Just your business alone is over 100 years. So talk a little bit more about the facts surrounding food flavorings, please.
The thing that I love so much about them, and I am not a flavorist, so we have to be clear. Flavors are amazing. It's art and science. It is like, think of a chef. It's like a chef. And they have to balance all of these components that are natural most of the time. It depends on the market or the customer. Say, for example, Mexico, very small disposable income. Sometimes they like artificial flavors because they have to meet a price point. But yeah, there's not many flavorists in the world. And again, back to like recruiting and getting a pipeline. It's an industry that's not known about when you're in school. Even when I went to Purdue, we did not learn about flavors until maybe our senior, I knew about it because my family business, but maybe in our senior project, we got to dabble with flavors. So it's like an apprenticeship that you learn on the job. We have application scientists that literally apply flavors, and they make prototypes from soup to crackers to what have you. So they're more like in the lab producing finished product. The flavors, we always say upstairs, downstairs, because in our world, the flavors are upstairs. And the flavorists really combine could be natural chemicals, it could be extracts, it could be fermentation. These different ingredients can come from all different sources. So FEMA is not the FEMA that you think of when you say FEMA, but it's the Flavor and Extract Manufacturers Association. FEMA's role is to really promote the safe use of flavorings, and we are highly regulated. It is a very safe industry. I think it's so cool. What I love about FEMA too, sitting on the board of governors, there's 12 of us from competitive companies, and we hold hands on this industry and like, and the safety of this industry. And like, it just gives me chills. I love collaboration like that around a table for the common good, you know?
We see it in farming too. I mean,
Yeah.
I've not farmed a day in my life, but I have the privilege of working for a lot of them. And when you think about things like the regulatory side of farming, we
Yeah.
must collaborate, so that the farmers can work towards comprehensive policies and regulations that are going to empower and strengthen their position in the marketplace, even if it means empowering and strengthening their competitors, but
Right.
you have to work towards industry sustainability. So it's great to hear that. And as someone in ag, yeah, I'm not surprised to hear that your industry has that type of collaboration, which is an association presence. And
Right. And it's complex, it is complex. Labeling is complex. So FEMA, one of their roles is to educate flavorists and regulatory people within our companies on how to label correctly. It's and there's a project going on right now where we're trying to get the carbon footprint of our industry, and they're getting down to like molecular level of that. Like that's beyond me. But I think it's a great cause. And part of FEMA's foundation was back in the 1930s. I believe it was the 30s. Well, first the Food and Drug Act came out in 1906, which really is when FEMA, I think, got its starting. But there was a program that they created called FEMA Grass. So it's grass means generally recognized as safe. So every single ingredient used in flavors goes through extensive testing, and there's these expert panels. So these are doctors and toxicologists, and I've never seen the files, but I've heard that, one component can be like a file this big on all the testing that's happened to make sure that it's safe. And the cool thing is this program has been adopted in 100 other countries. Isn't that cool? And it's the longest standing, safety program in the world.
The Produce Moms is proud to be the first and currently only B Corp certified influencer brand in the world. What does this mean? It means we view our work as a force for good, a good for the community, a good for our employees, for all of our stakeholders and the environment. Your participation in the Produce Moms community empowers all that we do. Please send me an email if you have any feedback or suggestions for this show or the Produce Moms brand overall. I believe that together we can get more fruits and vegetables on every table and make the world a better place. What's the one thing that you want people to know about flavorings in their food?
It's so fun. I mean, I love showing people the power of flavor, and a little bit goes a long way. A lot of flavor companies are perfume companies too, which is interesting. It's all the senses, smelling, tasting, it kind of goes together. We are not. A cheese flavored perfume probably wouldn't go over very well. So I think we work with the Culinary Institute of America. Love them. They recently started a culinary science program. Again, art and science, so cool. And we did a whole module on teaching these chefs how to use flavors and where flavors, and you can imagine chefs are we use butter. Exactly. But a lot of these students are going to end up at companies like Pepsi, Nestle, General Mills. So they have to learn how to make commercially viable food that tastes like the chef version that they know how to do. And they are like wowed. You do a gold standard dish with real milk, real cream, real butter. And then you do one where you decrease the milk, butter, some of the commodities, add a little flavor, do your magic. And they're like, wow, it tastes the same, or if not better than the gold standard. I think one of the interesting things, so when my dad started at Edlong, there was no such thing as a cheese cracker. Because if you use real cheese in a cracker that you cook at 450 degrees, the volatiles of the cheese fly off. So you're adding a very expensive component to a cheap cracker, and you're not even getting the taste of cheddar or whatever. So that was kind of what put us on the map, was coming up with a commercially viable cheese flavor that's heat stable, can handle the processing, and comes out and tastes like a cheddar cracker. So there's some processing things that, just natural components can't do, or natural ingredients that you have to really give them a little boost. And I'd say like the other, with like how inflation, we've all been talking about inflation in our grocery bills. This is an older part of the world that, in Mexico, milk, really hard for some families to afford milk. So analog milk is really common in Mexico. So it's the same nutrition as milk, but they might cut the milk by, 20%, add flavor and, and the nutrients, and then it's more affordable. So they have milk that that the government sponsors for families. And so there it's a value driven issue.
Well, and one thing too, from exploring the Edlong website, which is a phenomenal website, by the
Thank
way.
you.
I love all the content on there, the great videos that you have. You can learn soup to nuts, anything you want to know about flavoring, folks, by visiting the Edlong website. But I will tell you that one of the things that really struck me when I was on your site was how flavorings can help make something such as a plant-based food, which might not have the natural palate touch or flavors that people are looking for when they, because our food choices, no matter what anyone wants to say, they are driven by flavor more than anything. And I think that it was a very interesting call out on your site about how, like, hey, we make healthier foods taste better. And I think that definitely comes alive for anyone who's choosing a plant-based diet or wants to enjoy, dairy alternative foods.
And flexitarians that just want to do it a little bit. And what I love, and this happens to me sometimes, is, you go to Costco and get those dips you've never seen before, and you come home and it's really good. And then and I'm blind, so I got to put my glasses on. I'm like, this is plant-based, and it's beautiful. That's what you want. Like, people to be surprised and be like, I'd eat this as much as I would eat any normal that's non-plant-based. So that's kind of the goal.
So under your leadership at Edlong, the company has experienced this unprecedented growth, and we have to probably credit that growth journey with that very vulnerable stage that you shared, that you and your father went through together. But I just want to get your thoughts or anything that you'd like to share about that unprecedented growth that you've had, and perhaps some of the way that Edlong has been a solution and a catalyst for some of the top trends in foods, such as plant-based. How are you part of this trend? How are you driving the plant-based category forward at Edlong?
I think it goes back to our expertise. There's, again, a ton of flavor companies in the world. Well, not that many, and consolidation has been crazy. There used to be a lot more family flavor companies. But they do things from, strawberries to smoke flavors to all sorts of different things. And I think that our expertise and our focus really helps our technical team know how the interactions are going to happen with the proteins, with, what is the best masking component that's going to help that be more palatable. So our breadth and our expertise has truly given us a leading edge in plant-based, I would say. And our passion, I think I'd say that the growth is all around people. You cannot underestimate the importance of the right circle of trust and the people that you have, because that creates the culture. And I believe in authentic belonging. I like my team to be, they don't have to change their hat on Sunday to Monday, no Sunday dread. Be yourself, bring your best self to work, because that we need you. We need your creativity, your innovation. So the unity of the team has always been my driving force. There's nothing cooler than getting an opportunity from a customer, a project from a customer that the big guys can't solve. And my team puts their head together and solves it. And then it's out in the market and it's excelling. That is seen something in the market for us, be it restaurant, be it retail. That's what we love. And we can never tell anybody about it because we are the secret ingredient, which is also kind of fun.
Before we transition away from the talk about the family business and Edlong as a corporation, I do want to emphasize to folks, we've talked a lot about plant-based, but of course they do a lot with dairy and non-dairy flavorings. And here at the Produce Moms, we're pro ag. So we're not here to tell you what to choose. We're here to tell you, thank a farmer because you have all these abundant options.
And you think of things like even salad. I was thinking about this before talking to you. It's like, I love salad, but salad is a carrier to salad dressing. And so that's where we would connect, your business and my business in terms of make people eat more salad by making really good salad dressings.
So where else in the produce department might your product be found? Because I didn't even make the connection of salad dressings, but yeah, absolutely. The dips, I'm certain that the dips that are, yeah.
Hummus, I mean, a lot of that kind of, and even back to simplicity juices. So sometimes, and I'm not saying that we're in those, and nor could I ever say we're in anything, but that's just an example of something that could potentially use a flavor. And flavors aren't always just for flavor. Sometimes it's that mouthfeel, that like thickness, indulgent quality.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because mouthfeel was another thing that kind of, took me aback when I was exploring your website and how that is a component of the flavor journey. Mouthfeel is a big part of that.
It's such an experience. You're going to have to come to Edlong sometime when you're in Chicago because the best way to get all of this is to taste it. It's one of those things that you have to taste a control, we call it, with no mouthfeel, and then one with mouthfeel, and you experience it.
Sounds amazing, and I will be there. Laurette, let's talk about your company mission because it moved my soul when I read it.
That warms my heart. I love that.
Oh my gosh, it's a heartwarming mission to enrich the lives of everyone we touch.
I get chills when you say that.
It's beautiful.
I love it too. I cannot take credit for creating it, but when I heard it, we had a facilitator that came up with it. I'm like, that is it. He nailed it. And you can use it inside the company and outside the company so easily. We enrich the lives of our colleagues. We enrich the lives of, the people that we work with by helping them every day. But of course, enriching the lives of our customers by making them shine, making them look great. There was a recent story. One of our salespeople was telling us we had a customer come in and work in the lab. That's our favorite. When they come in and work side by side with us and the speed, and it's just so cool to watch. But she ended up going back to her company with the product that they came up with, and the president wrote her a note. This is beautiful. Well done. So she just looked so fantastic. Of course she was glowing. That's enriching a life.
Well, stay with us, folks. We are going to come back with Laurette, and we're really going to dive into the enriching your life, owning your legacy, and all of the female empowerment talk that we're going to get into next with Laurette Rondenet. You don't want to miss it. Stay with us. The Produce Moms is always accepting new brand partners. If you have a fruit or a vegetable product or a product that has the same integrity and values of fresh produce, we want to help you. Visit theproducemoms.com, and in the footer of our homepage, please click on the Work With Us link. We look forward to supporting you. Welcome back to the Produce Moms podcast. Lori Taylor here with Laurette Rondenet. Laurette, gosh, it's been great learning more about your family business, Edlong, a global food flavorings company. Let's talk a little bit more about what you've started through. I call it a personal brand, but gosh, it's right in line with the corporate mission of Edlong, enriching the lives of everyone we touch. Your podcast is titled Owning Your Legacy. There's a great website that goes along with that. Love to hear you just introduce Owning Your Legacy and what this personal brand is all about to our audience.
Yeah, I got to tell you, this Owning Your Legacy has taken me well outside of my comfort zone and really stretched me as a leader. And it started, we had an all company forum, and we have them often, but this one was about 2 years ago, and it was a big one. It was kind of a relaunch of Edlong. It was a serious content. So those big ones, I have a speaking coach, and I was doing my outline, and I kept emailing it to her. And she kept emailing me back going, nope, 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 you're going the wrong way. And I'm like, what? And she's like, you keep giving it to your father. And I'm like, oh. And my father and I were very close. He passed away in 2007. So it's been a few years, that I and what she was kind of coaching me on is claim your own, you know. And that was big and it was emotional. I'm not gonna lie. It's hard when you take over a family business to honor the past, but yet be your true self and step into, and I know that my dad's up in heaven going, you go girl, like we all would want that for our children. So it kind of woke me up to, I need to do that. And I need to do that for my people. And so that's how owning your legacy kind of came to be. And she's like, you're going to write a book. So there's a book in the making. That has been like a birth process. That's a labor of love. But from the writing of the book turned into, before you can really launch a book, you need a following. So you better do a podcast and get your own brand out there. So it has been eye-opening, really fun, met some really amazing people. And I feel like there's an opportunity, especially in the food industry, kind of being a beacon of light. I would love to be the beacon of light for the industry and collaborate with these other leaders and thought leaders. And so it's been really cool. And we're not even a year in. So our year anniversary is going to be next month. And the podcast is doing well. It's almost in like the top 25 podcasts. And I'm like, oh, that makes me so excited. And you learn, and you probably have too. I mean, you've been doing yours for 5 years, but what is the audience that you want to touch? Who, it's kind of evolving. I love talking leadership. We had some really, interesting people we just recorded last week. So Christy Hefner, Hugh Hefner's daughter. So she talk about empowered women. And the reason that I've met her before and heard her speak, and I love her keynote, and it resonated with me because she took over her father's business when she was 29 and it was a mess. He said, Christy, I feel like I gave you, I had a huge party and you're here to clean it up. So she was hugely successful. 20 years is the longest standing woman CEO of a publicly traded company, and she turned it around. So I mean, so it's not always like food. Sometimes I love to talk to people, just leadership, which you can go on, culture. Yeah. But yeah, so I would love to, I'd love to get more listeners.
The podcast is full of some amazing content. And as someone who's tuned in, I feel like your podcast really walks your audience through so many different pillars of not just owning or building a legacy, but also being a female leader and the journey of female leadership in the business world and in society at large. Themes that have stuck out to me include mentorship, circle of trust, adding value.
Yeah. I mean, Brene Brown is one of my favorites. I couldn't eat her stuff up. I love what she said. Every time I listen to her, I get value. And that's really the goal, right? I think for us podcasters, it's like we want our listeners to walk away with a nugget, at least one nugget of something that they hadn't thought of before.
And one question that you ask in each episode, what's your legacy that you want to leave behind?
I had one of my guests say, we're going to leave a legacy. We might as well make it intentional. I thought that was very wise. It's true. And it does require some soul searching. I think that question is not easy. And it can evolve. I truly believe that can evolve. At one point in your life, you might have a different thought of what your legacy is, and it could change.
Yeah, it definitely can. So where do people begin? I mean, is it someone who's with us listening today, Laurette, and they're like, what kind of legacy am I going to leave behind? I've never really thought about a legacy, much less owning it. Where do you recommend that people begin?
Again, I think it's soul searching. I think it kind of starts with owning your own power, owning your own voice, not being, coming from a family of 7, you can only imagine some of the voices in my head, that you have to sometimes get kind of quiet and maybe do a clarity break and some drawing of what that means to you. And I think the ultimate goal is to become unownable. So when you really can stand in your own self and in your own vision, that no one can knock you off your center or bring you to your knees, in what you see as your vision of your life, quite frankly.
I completely agree. Well, you've had some amazing guests on the show. Michael Byron was one of my
Ooh,
favorites.
one of my
Let's talk
favorites.
about, yeah, we have to talk about his episode because gosh, we just had some of the amazing women from Walmart on the show, and so tell a little bit more about Michael Byron and the impact that he has had on owning legacy.
He is amazing. So, retired now, but was the supplier diversity professional for Walmart that used his seat at the table for good. That was the title of the podcast with him that I loved. And it was his quote that he knew that he had the power to really help people. But it wasn't easy. He had to influence within Walmart to look at woman-owned businesses. He had the support of his CEO. That was huge, that the CEO said, we are going to spend 20 billion with women-owned businesses in the next 5 years. That's a lot and not a lot of time. And he and his team exceeded it by 1 billion. I'm like, what? That's legacy stuff. He talked about the McBride sisters on that episode, and I went back and listened to how it's made. Great episode. And they called Michael out. They said he changed our life. That they make wine. I think they only black. Is it only black woman-owned winemakers? So he got, and that was when he was at Super Value, though, he stated, but he got them on the shelves. And then the cool thing, he goes, okay, who else do you want to meet? He's like, I know Target. I know, they really help support these businesses grow in all retailers. So in totality, brought everybody out.
Such a great example of owning your legacy. Obviously, lots more to come on your podcast, but Laurette, anything that you want to encourage folks to think about when it comes to owning their legacy, crafting their legacy, or even just anything that's coming up within your show that you'd like to call out? I can't wait for that Christy Hefner episode, by the way. That's going to be a good one. When's it publishing?
Yeah, that's going to be publishing in the spring. So that should be coming out soon. And I guess I would say, and I loved when we started chatting before we were recording, and you're like, oh, you need to meet so-and-so. I love that.
Sarah Fry. Anyone who's listening to the Produce Moms podcast, after I got to know Laurette's story and really tuned in to, owning your legacy, but specifically that episode with Michael, I was like, you have to meet Sarah. I'm sending her the book, The Growing Season. And certainly if you have any recommendations for Laurette, hop on the website, send her a recommendation.
When it clicks in some, oh, you need to meet, or this story needs to be told. I love that.
And it is one of the most heartwarming things when you're hosting, when you are at the helm of a movement or a community, or have the ability to put a spotlight on someone. It means so much when people provide you with a recommendation, and it's a qualified lead at that.
It does. And back to enriching lives, you hope that you're enriching the lives of your podcast guests. So thank you, because this is enriching to me. And I think, it reciprocates, right? So I'm going to definitely have you on mine.
Thank you.
I'll just keep the circle going. And I would say too, I think the only other thing that's kind of lingering is really figuring out a way to bring awareness to this industry is another one of our passions. And down to sixth graders, I think it starts there with getting kids interested in cooking, interested in, the family sciences, like all of that is something that we're really passionate about. Female Strong comes to mind as I'm talking about that. So on the board of Female Strong, which has a Young Entrepreneurs Academy, and the Chicago chapter is the only one in the nation that's just young women. And it starts from sixth grade to seniors in high school. And they do like a semester-long entrepreneurial program. And they come up with a business. And at the end, they do like a Shark Tank thing. And they have to present their business. And it's so fun. So Christy Hefner was one of the investor panelists. It was hysterical. So we coached the girls. They're amazing. The girls are amazing. Their confidence at like sixth grade blows my mind. But she was like hammering one girl on like her P&L. And I'm like, Christy, she's like in sixth grade. That was so funny. But I think just, the next generation, whatever it is, in food science or even entrepreneurial or especially women, the confidence. So there's statistics that's on the Female Strong website of something happens in sixth grade. When we're young girls, we think we can do everything a boy can do better. And then it changes. And I don't know if it's hormonal. I don't know what it is. But supporting young women through that and helping them with their confidence is a huge passion of mine. So a call out, I guess, to Female Strong. And we always need, supporters, mentors. There's so many ways to help these young women.
I have a son in high school and a son in middle school. It is a beautiful reminder of you don't have to get on these big international boards, grassroots opportunities to change the lives of a sixth grader. That can change the world.
That is so true. I love the stories of the young women that have gone through that are now doctors. Like, what? And they say, Female Strong really did truly, truly help me. I have 5 boys. So my job is to make 5 nice young men, right?
I tell you what, I agree with you. Before we close things up, Laurette, we'd love to hear from you. We ask really anyone who's on this show that has that entrepreneurial type role or a CEO leadership style role with their company. We want to hear about the best and worst advice that you've received. So let's put you in that hot seat. What's the best advice you've received?
That's a really good question. The best advice ever received and the worst advice.
And if you're just like, well, the best advice and the worst advice that you can keep it candid, like what you give to people, like what do you tell your children? Like what do you feel is the best advice you're giving them? You can take this question whatever direction you want.
I think the best advice is to find what you love. My 27-year-old football player, very, played for Ball State, funny enough. So I ended up back in Muncie, if you can only imagine. And really just a driven kid, smart kid, then ended up going to Madison, only played football for a year, and then went to Madison, econ major, thought he wanted to get into supply chain. Ended up doing that for a couple of years, and then had a really bad breakup with a girlfriend and kind of brought him to his knees. And he was in Colorado, came home. And he was the one that brought up Sunday Dread to me. And I was like, oh, that's horrible, Garrett. And finally had to make a career path change. And he's like, I want to do woodworking. He was always a really creative, artistic kid, loves working with his hands. He is now doing woodworking, and I've never seen him happier. So I think he taught me, you got to do what you love. You realize there's nothing, I would never want to see my children, again, and even back to the Edlong concept, I think it was a blessing that I was not pushed into the role. And I feel bad for my brother that he was. I think that's the difference between daughters and sons, at least in that era, which would have been, the 60s, 70s-ish. So I guess maybe that's advice too, especially to family businesses. I don't think you can force your kids to lead a company. They have to love it and want it. And I used to be so bad. I wouldn't even share work stuff. Now my youngest is 15. So I have 15, 16, 22, 27, and 32. And now I share. And now they're some of my biggest fans are my kids on Owning Your Legacy. And they keep telling me, Mom, you got to get on TikTok. But I don't ever try to push them towards Edlong. I don't ever want sibling rivalry between them. But if one of them came to me and said, I love it, this is what I want to do, I would listen for sure. So I guess the advice there is, let your kids find their own passion and paths.
In the spirit of great advice that we've heard regarding raising children, something that stuck with me that I heard years ago was we have to let our children fail. And that's worthy of a call out too, even though this is your spotlight and your microphone moment. But I'm like,
I love
mom to mom. And for anyone listening today with us that can relate to that, it is so hard to let your children fail.
It is so hard. It is so hard. But the helicopter thing is not the way to go. And when you have 5 of them and work, like I work, I can't be a helicopter. I was team mom for the basketball team this year, which was hysterical. It kind of happened by accident. And my kids are like, you're what? I'm like,
I actually knew you were team mom because we rescheduled this recording. Gail reached out to us. She's like, Laurette is preparing the basketball meal tonight during this time frame. And I was like, I get it. My son's on the high school basketball team. So I was like, I like Laurette already. I'm doing the team meal on Tuesday, first round of sectionals here in Indiana, and I've got the team meal. So
and your kids play soccer?
Basketball, baseball and football. So
I got football and basketball pretty much, but yeah, they're doing lacrosse this spring, which is kind of new for them. So I'm excited about that. Next football season. So freshman and sophomore, the sophomore played varsity this year and the freshman played up, JV. So I was sitting in football stands for 6 hours for 2 games. My butt was like, I can't sit on these. So next year, though, they both got moved up to varsity football. So they're going to be standing next to each other on the line. I'm going to be nervous wreck, but so excited. But yeah.
Laurette, this has been a heartwarming conversation. We have talked about everything from motherhood and our shared passions of watching our sons on their sports fields to and preparing the team meal, to your rich legacy, as a female leader, and of course the amazing story of Edlong. What a great episode this has been, and it's just been a true joy to meet you. But before we close, like all of our shows, our guests get the opportunity for closing remarks or any closing sentiments that you'd like to share with our audience.
I would just like to say thank you so much for the time. It's been really nice, and I think it's opened my eyes to so many possibilities of where collaboration like you and I are having right now can happen. And that just excites the heck out of me. I think there's so many ways to support each other. And I particularly love women supporting women and empowering each other.
Yes.
Thank you.
So Laurette, where can people go to stay in touch with what you're doing as well as the Edlong company?
The best place to find me is on LinkedIn, Laurette Rondenet, and also Instagram. And also there's my website, so lauretterondenet.com. And there you can find all the episodes of Owning Your Legacy. So we just finished taping season 4, so we're on a roll.
And Owning Your Legacy, anywhere, like wherever you're listening to today's shows, folks, Owning Your Legacy is there as well. So make sure you find it.
Spotify, Apple, anywhere you get your podcast, you can find that. And as far as Edlong, we are also on LinkedIn and can find us at edlong.com. Doing a lot of plant-based pro series and a lot of informative videos on that side of the business. So lots going on.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Produce Moms podcast on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and any preferred podcast platform. Check out the Produce Moms on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube. Special thanks to everyone involved with the Produce Moms podcast, my amazing team. Stay tuned till next time. The Produce Moms photography studio is now open. Our photographer, Jan, has been taking beautiful photos for theproducemoms.com for nearly a decade. And now we are opening up our Indianapolis-based photography studio to help other brands with their food photography. The Produce Moms Photography Studio is trusted by some of the biggest brands in fruits and vegetables. We're your solution for seasonal, lifestyle, and packaging photography. Our photos have been used for national retailer ads, e-commerce technology, print, digital, social media, and more. To learn more or to schedule your photo shoot with us, email me, Lori@theproducemoms.com.